Welcome to Reselling Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 346, an update episode.
Yeah, we love our update episodes. So again, if you're new to Reselling Podcast, you're not kind of sure how our program works. Every Monday, we release a short little episode on YouTube. It's a YouTube exclusive. So if you're not already following us on YouTube, make sure to go on over there, hit the subscribe button, check out. We have a lot of videos. Sometimes we post, shorts or some of the things that we do at garage sales or things like that will end up on YouTube and not on the podcast. And then also we have that special Monday episode that's just on YouTube. And then every Wednesday, we alternate between a themed episode where we're talking about a specific topic in reselling. And then we have our update episodes, which are like this, where we get to talk about what's going on in our life reselling wise. And then just general news in the reselling world, eBay updates, shipping updates, all the things that matter to us as resellers, along with some sweet BOLO. So we've had some people ask, what's a BOLO? So this episode, we're going to be dropping some BOLOs, things you should be looking out for. Be on the lookout for these items because they're going to flip for a lot of money if you find them at garage sales, thrift stores. They sell well on eBay.
I can't believe we missed that on our last theme episode, or the last two, because the last two were like things you should know as a new seller.
Yeah, if you're a new seller and then we're like, here's BOLOs, and it's like...
BOLO means be on the lookout.
That's right.
So it's an item you want to pick up for money. I can't, that's the thing. And hopefully, many of you, when you listen to us, if there's anything that goes over your head, you're like, wow, you guys are discussing that, I have no idea. Let us know in the comments. Sometimes, we can reply in the comments and just clarify things, or that gives us an idea about something to discuss on a Monday minisode or a future podcast. Because the thing is, after you're reselling for a while, again, you forget what got you to a certain place.
That's right.
Right. I mean, I've been doing this it's crazy. It's like 11 to 12 years, right? And then 5 years full time. We're approaching our 6th year in Pure Podcast here pretty soon.
That's crazy. We need to.
That is
when we get to a decade. That's gonna be lit.
A decade. I want to know how many like reselling YouTubes have been around for like a decade.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I think at that point, then we've made it. We're OG
so.
At that point.
I hope so. Anyways, hey, what's going on? Oh, before we start, if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and make sure to smash that like button and hit that bell notification so you know whenever an episode drops. So what's going on with you, Mike?
So we talked recently, I think our last update episode, that I wanted to hit some garage sales, just because I'm going to be moving here.
I know where this went.
So do you?
Yeah, on the Discord.
I heard
it was hilarious.
Yeah. So Saturdays typically are either family days for me or it's sourcing. I mean, we all know what it's like as resellers. In fact, more and more people that I know, like it's coming up a lot in our Discord of people who, Fridays tend to actually be a really good garage sale day for a lot of people, or estate sales. Unfortunately, I typically can't do Fridays. So Saturdays are the day that's like, I'm going to go sourcing. And as a teacher on my contract, there tends to be like 2 to 3 Saturdays every year that I'm like contracted. I have to do something for the school, whether it's a conference or professional development or something like that. And this coming Saturday, or the last Saturday, was one of those where I had to go to a school function, and it was a STEAM expo. So kind of a fun thing in a community college where our school was kind of representing the things we do as a school. And normally for things like that, if it's a Saturday thing that I can get out of, even if it means I'm taking a sick day, I'm going to do it because I know that, hey, if I take a sick day, I'm going to make more money out of garage sales than I'm going to make whatever they're going to pay me for a day, right? I'll take the sick time. That's fine. However, I got a special stipend for this one, and then an additional stipend to go to this one because they wanted me to record some video stuff. So again, we talk a lot about being a hustler, having a lot of different skills and trades and things that you can do in order to hustle. So my school knows that I do videos, I make videos. So it was worth it to me. I basically got a double stipend to go to this thing. So I didn't take sick time, but it didn't start until like 10. I had to be there at 9. But I was like, okay, even having to get there at 9,
time.
I can, that's before golden hour, right? Like if you're going to garage sales, if you're between 6 and like 8 is golden time. Like that's when you're making your best deals. So I'm like, no problem. I'll just find some garage sales around that area. And I do my normal tips and tricks as far as I'm going onto Craigslist and I'm looking up community garage sales, church rummage sales, neighborhood sales. And I found one that was near enough, and it was advertised as a big, large neighborhood community garage sale. Multiple houses participating. It was in a nice
it even
area.
said that on the ad.
Multiple houses participating. It was a nice neighborhood. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to this one. I'll probably spend my whole morning there, and then I'll head straight over to the event that I have to go to for school. Well, I get there, And the house that was in, because a lot of times those community sales, they'll give you like one address or like a location. Well, there was one address. So that's the one I go to. It is the only garage sale. And while I'm there, like there's nothing. There's like 6 people trying to buy stuff at this one house. And there's really nothing that's valuable there. And I even hear the husband and wife running the garage sale say, are we the only house doing this? And the guy's like, well, it doesn't technically start until 7. So they're probably not going to start setting out their stuff until 7. And I'm like, oh no. Garage sales, if it starts at 7, people are setting their stuff up before 7, right?
Do you think he knew?
I don't know.
Like he had planned to write community sale on the ad the entire time?
It could have been one of those things where a bunch of neighbors were like, yeah, this Saturday let's do a garage sale. And then they just ended up being the only one. So I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I go onto the Discord and I see all these people saying like, yeah, I'm driving, this distance to go to these garage sales and there's going to be 100 of them. Or, I got 30 garage sales I've got on my map in this area I'm going to be driving to. And I'm like, I drove to this area and there was one house. The entire community sale was one house. And that's the worst. I mean, a lot of times you can tell in an ad, right? A lot of times an ad, it's pretty clear, like, this is a neighborhood, or if it's like a multifamily. A lot of times what multifamily, at least in our area, what that means is that it's one house running it and it's like maybe 2 families in the same driveway. And it's like, it's me plus like I invited my my aunt to come over and sell some of her stuff on this table. So multifamily I typically avoid, but when it's like community, neighborhood, multiple houses participating, it looked pretty legit. And so I went out there and no, it was not good. So then that's when we spend a lot of time, and we've talked a lot in the past about the importance of planning out your route the night before, having ahead of time the houses you're going to go to, the time you're going to go to them. Orlando and I have kind of different techniques of how we do that. I typically will plan based off of time frame. So garage sales that start at 6, I'm going to hit those up first, and then the ones that start at 7. So even if I have to do some backtracking, because I want to be the first one as many garage sales as I can. You can also do it based off of just drive like time or distance, or you can also do it based off of keywords like, oh, these ones say they have Legos, so I'm going there first, or whatever it is that you're looking for. But because I was thinking that I'm just going to spend this entire time at a community garage sale, I didn't have a route planned out. And when you're sitting there and it's now at 7 o'clock, it's actually like getting close, like 7:15 by the time I left that garage sale. I'm like, okay, now I've got to like create a route right now before I leave. And it's tough. It's tough when you're doing that on your phone. It's not as convenient as doing it on the night before on a computer and making the list. So I'm trying to find all of the areas. And so then the next one I go to, another huge fail. Typically on Craigslist, it's pretty good to show you like the day of sales. So like
they have a map now.
Yeah, I use the map all the time. They've had the map for a long time.
Oh, okay.
You have to select it. Yeah.
I just recently noticed it.
Yeah, so you have to select the map. But I like doing that because then you can see a whole bunch of like, if you see 6 in an area, then you zoom into that area and you're like, okay, these are all, within a few blocks of each other. Okay, I'm going to go there. So I saw one that looked really good, and it was an estate sale. And I hadn't been doing estate sale in a little while. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit up an estate sale. So I go to an estate sale, and as soon as I pull up, it was nobody's there. I'm like, what in the world is happening? I got the right address. I look, and it's for a week from now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
that's
Craigslist
terrible.
almost never does that. Like Craigslist is really good with like, you put in the date that it starts. And like, if I start doing them on Friday, so I have to purposely select Saturday. Cause sometimes it's like one day only Fridays, and I don't want those. So for whatever reason, they had selected on Craigslist that it was going to be this Saturday, but in the ad, it was the next Saturday. So I drove a long ways to this one that wasn't even a thing. Drove to another estate sale and actually spent quite a bit of time in another estate sale. Didn't end up buying anything. There was actually a lot of stuff I could have bought. He had some pretty good prices on some Legos and some toys. But I'm being really picky right now on the stuff that I'm picking up. And it wasn't quite the right pricing. It was like, I could be profitable here, but I know I'm going to end up moving this stuff across country, and I'm going to end up making like maybe $150 off of all the stuff that I could buy, but it's a lot of stuff and it's not worth it to me. So I didn't end up buying anything there. But in between those two, the fake estate sale and then the real estate sale, I went to a garage sale, and as soon as I pull up, I walk up and I'm starting to look at some stuff, and from inside the house, I hear somebody yell, "Is that Pure Hustle Podcast?"
What?
And I was like, what? And so I look, and a guy comes out and he's like, "Hey, I listened to your show." I'm pretty sure his name was Eric. Now, if you're listening right now, if I've got your name wrong, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure it was Eric. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm telling all my friends about your podcast. This is my buddy. He's selling his stuff right now." And I'm like, oh, dang, like it's not a great thing. I love,
but they know you haggle though, right?
So they know I haggle. Here's the thing. I love meeting listeners out in the wild, especially if they're buyers. But when they're the ones doing the garage sale, it's not as good of a deal, because here's the thing.
I hear you.
I know for a fact I mean, maybe everybody's different. Like there's things that you sell that I don't sell. And so maybe there was some profitable stuff there. But I also know like if there's any like gems, like this thing is going to sell for $500 on eBay. This guy already knows. He already went through, he found it, he pulled all that stuff out. So I knew I wasn't going to get any killer deals at this place, but it was cool to get to kind of talk to a listener for a little while. And the weird thing was, he's like, so you're moving, like, you know, why are you moving? So it's kind of weird. And he's like, it's weird. I know. I feel like I know like your whole life story. And, and it's a cool thing. I don't want anybody, if you're a listener, I feel like there's times where I run into listeners and they've like made eye contact with me, but they haven't actually, you know, like talked to me.
I've had people do that and then DM me after the
like
fact.
I saw you.
Hey, I saw you. I made eye contact with you. It's like, you should have said hi.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to say hi. We love talking to our listeners out in the wild. It's a ton of fun. But so it was cool because it wasn't a wasted morning. It was, I got to go to some estate sales. I got a kind of a frustrating story of going to a community sale. But then I got to chat with a listener for a little while, which is a ton of fun. And then I did the school thing and it's fine. So it ended up being a day where I didn't actually buy anything, but that's fine because I still got the thrill of looking through boxes and at the one estate sale that I went to, you know, spending some time, I did some negotiating, some haggling. And in fact, like as I was leaving, it was like, okay, okay, let's make a deal on the Legos. And I'm like, oh, do I do it? Like, no, I said, honestly, I'm not in the market for them right now, because if I wanted to spend the time and the energy, I could probably have made some money on it, but I didn't want to deal with shipping all that stuff across the country and re-going through it then. Yeah, it's a pain, for
especially
sure.
when you got to lot them up and everything. Yeah. We have a video, by the way, if you want to look at this podcast Lego.
But these were sets, and so it's a little bit harder because you want to make sure they're all in bags. He's like, this one's complete.
Oh,
this
that's
one's
even worse.
This one.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that headache.
But yeah, it was a cool day. It's cool getting to talk to a listener. So yeah, I mean, not a ton going on with that. I mean, I'm still doing the local deals. Sold quite a few things locally in the last couple of days. Had people coming over to the house quite a bit, buying some stuff, or meeting people. So the reason I had people at the house is because they're big things like furniture type stuff that we were flipping. So that's not stuff that I want to go meet at like a Starbucks or something. Yeah. But usually we'll meet at like a fast food place or something like that locally. But I've done a lot of local deals. In fact, got a killer deal. It was crazy. So we're in the market personally for a new washer dryer because the house that we bought doesn't have washer and dryer. You know, we've only rented recently. So it's like, okay, we need to buy a nice washer and dryer. And my wife found this deal, and it's like brand new. These washer and dryers are like 900 and something each, washer and dryer. So you're looking at like $2,000 total for both of them. Yeah. And we picked them up for $400. They're still so new that they have the warranty. The lady had the warranty on them still. She's like, here you go. Here's the warranty for these. And she goes, yeah, I must have sold these too low because I had like 30 people reaching out. You guys were just the first one.
Was the gal like in her 30s?
Maybe.
Like a kid?
No, it was a husband wife. I mean, there may be a kid.
I think I know. Oh, really? I think they're friends of mine. Did you find it on a marketplace?
No.
Okay,
it was OfferUp. Yeah,
because she had like brand new stuff. Just trying that would have been crazy.
That would be interesting. But yeah. So again, as a reseller, knowing how to look for things. And my wife and I had a long conversation about that. She goes, because she was getting kind of discouraged because she kept seeing good deals and then she couldn't pick them up. And it was like, you can easily get that FOMO that we talk about a lot when it comes to, you know, there's a garage sale or an estate sale. Am I going to miss something? And it happens a lot on local deals where you see something and it's like in your mind, you're like, if I get this is going to be it. And then it falls through, they sell it to somebody else and you can almost feel devastated. Like I missed it. But we were talking, it's like, if you're patient enough, if you're hawking OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, you know what it is you're looking for, you know the niche you're in, eventually you're going to find the deal. And it doesn't have to be all the time, because my wife was like, we can turn around and like make $600-700 off these washer and dryers like today if we wanted to. I was like, we could flip them right now and make a ton of money. And I was like, but we need them, so we're going to keep them, right? But if you're hawking and you know what you're looking for, you might only get deals like that a few times a year, where it's like, I could turn this around. And it was like that with both the trailers that I bought, where I could turn this around and make $1,000 today on this thing that I bought. Well, if you get 5-6 deals like that a year on big things where it's like you buy it and you can make $1,000, you can easily get that FOMO, or you can get that feeling of, I've looked for the last 6 weeks and I haven't found a great deal on OfferUp or on Facebook Marketplace. But 6 weeks isn't really a lot of time. And if you consider like 52 weeks, if you get 4, 5, 6 of these deals where you're making $500 to $1,000 or more off of a single flip, where you're buying something and then flipping it, that's an extra $5-6 grand a year just from a few minutes a day. That's it. A few minutes a day, you're looking at things like, oh, there's a good one. Let's try it. Oh, no, that one's a bad one. So don't be discouraged if you are like, man, I really know RC cars, or I really know couches or whatever it is that and you're not finding those deals, you might only find the deal once or twice a year, but it's going to be worth it. And the more of those niches that you learn, the more of those items that you can learn a lot about over time, you get to the point where, hey, there's like 8 categories I know really well, and I only find 1 or 2 of them a year on Facebook Marketplace or on OfferUp, but those 1 or 2 times really pays off. So don't be afraid to spend time looking for those deals. You don't have to. I think a lot of times we get that, like, I have to do it all today. If I don't find the deal on Facebook Marketplace, especially if you're new, you're just starting out, I can't find anything that I'm looking for, I'm just going to give up reselling. Well, over the course of the year, you're going to find a handful. And the more that you learn, you're going to find more and more of those. And if that's just the icing on the cake, man, you can really bring in extra money.
I would add to that you could actually, and it depends where you're at, because I think we're privileged to be in San Diego, and there's hundreds of people selling stuff all the time. I would say thousands of people selling stuff all the time, but it kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying. So I'm in a place where I'm only sourcing once a week.
Right.
I'm just sourcing garage sales. That's it. Now, there's 2 reasons for that. One is I have tons of stuff that I still need to list, and I have not been as consistent. I will say I've not been doing the 30 plus a day that I like to do. I've actually been really low, but that's what I love about reselling, is because you still have the ability to have money come in, and you can take a break if you need to. Right now, it's the end of the school year. My kids have a lot of stuff going on. My one son just finished school, so that part is done. My other son's still going to school, but I had a lot of church events, a lot of school events. You just mentioned all that. And so I've been able to step back even as a full-time seller because I have a lot of inventory. So I'm not really stressed about it. And part of the reason is this last year, I kept mentioning, I'm going to keep buying. I'm going to keep buying. I'm going to keep buying. There's so many deals. And as you're discussing local deals, I'm thinking of the fact that every day I'm looking for local deals, and I probably lose 90% of them, right? Because I offer too low sometimes, but there's always that 1 or 2 that bite, right? And they make that time worth it. So I may spend an hour or 2, going through Craigslist, going through OfferUp, checking out Facebook Marketplace, Nextdoor, all the different, local apps, and might say, well, you lost 2 hours. And let's say I spend 10 hours a week doing that. But I find those 1 or 2 scores, if I do the math, I'm easily going to be making $50 to $100 easily per hour with those 10 hours added. Yep. Right. So it is worth the time. Obviously, you should do saved searches and so on. And then on top of that, there's business cards. We've talked about business cards, how Mike and I very much are in favor of handing out business cards, especially when it's a good deal where you buy a lot of stuff and you find out they have more. Because even that'll keep you moving, right? And I would say recently I haven't had a lot of texts or messages probably in the last month, but there was 1 month where I think I had like 8 phone calls, right? Where, hey, by the way, I know you were interested, and it's been about over a year since we've talked, but I know this family and they want to move all this stuff, and I mentioned you, and you show up and you're set. So I want to encourage you, keep looking into those local deals, keep finding ways to source. Did you have more to add? I didn't mean to cut you off. That's good. So I've had some interesting things. I do want to, I don't even know where to start here. So remember when I went up to San Francisco and I visited for the week, and I bought stuff while I was out there, and I was like, I don't know if it's going to be that profitable. And it ended up being pretty much all the stuff I picked up was profitable. So I always encourage people, if you're on a trip, you have an opportunity to source, you should, because you never know how things will play out. So when I was in San Francisco, I had one of my best friends. He took care of the hotel while I was there. And that was pretty awesome. So thank you. You know who you are if you're listening. And, my plane flights were taken care of because of the points I get from, doing retail arbitrage. And then I went sourcing. I ended up selling a shirt I paid $8 for $150. I sold a pair of shoes that I paid $24 for $180, or maybe I got them switched. Anyways, close to $200. I sold another shirt for $90, another shirt for $90. So I ended up spending, I think, like $100 sourcing. I made, $500 to $800 on everything I picked up. And on top of that, I ended up paying for my meals because, right, a lot of these things when you're sourcing, you can, put tax deductions and so on. And so I was thinking back, I was like, wow, every time I go on some kind of trip, I usually want to source. Right now, there are times when I go out with my family and And like, I remember when we went to South Dakota 2 years ago and so on, there's not much to source. You're out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming and so on. And you don't want to take away from your family either. But I encourage you to do that because there's good money. All right. So that I just wanted to share that because I was kind of shocked at everything I was making. All right. So a lot of you have been asking, how's the ending of sales and restarting of sales going? And we had a discussion on Discord and a lot of people were saying, that's what I'm doing right now. I'll run a sale for a week and I'll end it. And hours later, I'll start it. And it's kind of like it jumpstarts things.
It refreshes it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, how long that hack's going to be around. But if you haven't started that, I would try it because my sales they're not at Q4 level, but they've been pretty close. And one of my stores is consistently selling. I went from the depths of despair in February to now I'm like, all right, summer's looking pretty good. If this momentum can continue, I'm going to have a really good summer. I don't think I've had a summer slowdown yet. And I know everybody right now on YouTube is talking about slow sales and things aren't working out. And I want to encourage you to listen to our Monday mini-sode that we just dropped. In there, we take an email from someone and we discuss, the idea of, okay, why aren't sales happening, right? They attempted to try something and then things just fell apart and just listen to it. Because in the end, yes, there are the macroeconomics, right? The bad economy. We have a lot of issues going on in our country with the debt ceiling and so on. But there are always buyers for items, right? They never go away, whether it be times of despair or whether, things are really going well. There will always be buyers for items. The catch is, finding those items, marketing them right, giving the right deal, and you can still consistently make sales.
Yeah. And kind of going along with what you were saying with the ending the sale. So we talked recently in previous episodes about the benefit of doing that as far as the algorithm goes and how that might help you as far as eBay specifically is concerned. But in addition to that, somebody mentioned, I think it was in a YouTube comment, might have been on the Discord, but somebody talked about doing what you were saying as far as running a sale, starting it on Monday, ending it on Sunday, and then like starting over. And one of the benefits of doing that is it can create a sense of urgency for the buyer if they see like, oh, there's only 2 days left in this sale. Mm-hmm. And think about it, like Harbor Freight, I think is a good example because I've been buying some stuff recently at Harbor Freight. And occasionally it's like the items that I want are on sale and they're really good. If you're a member or you sign up for their email, you're getting emails consistently about whatever their newest coupons are and their sales. And Harbor Freight is like Hobby Lobby, is like a lot of the places where if you're buying something at full price, you're paying too much. Because there's always a sale of some kind. And maybe the item you're trying to buy this week isn't on sale this week, but within the month, like it's going to cycle and it's going to be on sale for a pretty good price, or there's going to be a coupon. And stores know that. And so again, if that's what businesses do, they understand there's people who are paid. Like I don't remember what movie it was, but I watched something, maybe it was a documentary, and it was talking about like the people who are in charge of like political campaigns, as far as like, okay, the candidate's going to go on stage, what color tie are they going to wear? What style watch are they going to have? How are they going to have their hands positioned? Like they know based off of the psychology of like, okay, the intended audience for this specific debate, this color is going to resonate in this way and it's going to create these feelings. And there are people who it's like, that's way above my pay grade. I don't have time to learn all of that aspect of psychology. But what we can do is we can assume all of the big companies have paid the people in marketing to figure those things out. And if a lot of the big companies are running those consistent sales that, ending, this week and 2 days only, and then that next week is going to be another 2 days only sale. And it works. Like it works in order to hook people in. It drives that sense of urgency. So not only can it help you in the algorithm by ending sales and then starting a sale again, but again, there's that psychology aspect of if there's somebody who's looking at items in your store and they're like, oh man, it's on sale, but the sale's only good for one more day. Well, they don't know that you're going to put it back on sale again next week. And maybe eventually they're like, oh, this thing's always on sale. But usually it's enough to drive that I'm going to make an offer right now because it's on sale. So you get that benefit too. And again, if bigger companies are doing that, take advantage of the fact that they've already done the market research. That's a tactic that works. Even things like ending something in 99 instead of selling something for $24, you sell for $23.99. Like that's something everybody knows, like, oh, it's not really that big of a difference, but in somebody's head, well, that's only $23. It's not, or it's only $24, not $25. And that a little bit is enough to make a difference for somebody. Mm-hmm. And so little things like that, you don't have to learn all the psychology behind it, but just say, hey, if big companies are doing this, I'm going to imitate it, assuming they know what they're doing.
It's funny you bring that up. So at Costco, there's this detergent that has a fabric softener and it's Tide, whatever. And I usually buy the private label stuff, right? Because it's a better deal and it's the same quality. But recently they've had this coupon and it's like, you get it for 15 instead of 20. And so I remember last time I bought 2, right? Because I'm like, all right, I'm getting this deal, instead of spending the $40, I'm only spending 30, I'm saving $10. And then 2 weeks later, they had the sale again on them. And then I bought it again, right? Because I'm like, I don't know if this is going to go on sale again. I really like, the way this wash the clothes and everything. So yeah, I agree with you. Like that's what happens. People are like, hey, I better snag this now because I don't know if it'll be at this price later. So encourage you guys to do that because I do think sales can continue. Now, garage sales, they've been good. That's all I can say. I mean, this last time I did go to one of those community sales like you had mentioned, and it was like 3 houses, right? And but here's the beauty of garage sales. I always encourage you, pick up like that one item is going to pay for your haul. Right. So recently, this last Saturday, I ended up getting 2 free mountain bikes, which were just hanging. They were huffy, so they weren't like next level. Great, yeah. But they're free, and hopefully locally I can flip those. I picked up some baseball bats, which are hot right now. That's not our BOLO, but that's our free BOLO, and some other items. But one bat that I sold it for $90 plus shipping, paid for the entire haul. Right. And from the haul, I'm probably going to make, $500 to $600. So I always think about that when you're at garage sales and you're like, I don't know if it's even worth it. You never know. You might hit that one garage sale. You get that one item that's going to take care of everything. So, hey, before we move on, sometimes you got all that inventory that you picked up from a garage sale and you're like, oh, I'm going to put this on a spreadsheet or I'm going to take care of it later. And then April 15th comes along. You're like, oh, I don't even know what items I picked up, what they sold for. My Reseller Genie is a tool to help you. We've had plenty of people sign up via our link below, get that free 15% off with our code Pure Hustle, all caps. And they've even said, I've always stressed about my taxes. I've always been worried. I don't like Excel. I can't stand it. Well, my Reseller Genie takes care of all of that. What it does is you're able to track your inventory, put how much you paid for items. It imports everything from eBay on a daily basis. If you end up getting, I think it's not the first plan, but the next plan, it takes care of everything. And it's very affordable in comparison to QuickBooks or other ones that are just complicated and not reseller friendly. So definitely check out my Reseller Genie. Go to our link below, use our code Pure Hustle, all in caps, and you get 15% off the first month. Yeah. Do you have any random stories?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm talking about how foolish I have been recently, which, I think normally the strategy that influencers have, not that I'm saying we're influencers, but the strategy is like flex as much as you can about how great you are and how much you're doing. But we try to be very real and talk about our failures too, so that way people can learn from our mistakes. So we sold something recently and it was, pretty good sale. It was like, almost $100 sale in profit for us. And it was a, piece of hardware that goes on the outside of someone's home to like cover an electrical box. We sold quite a few of those recently. And we go and we pack it and we realize like, oh, we don't actually have to ship this for like, why is it saying we have like almost a week to ship this out? And then we realized that we had taken a trip and we had adjusted our shipping and handling time, which we've talked about doing multiple times. Is like, you can do time away. You can adjust your shipping and handling time if you're going to be gone for a little bit. We'd adjusted our shipping and handling time and we never changed it back. And so for like 2 weeks, like sales are coming in, but much slower than normal.
Like, what's going on?
And then we realized like, oh, well, that's not great. So anyways, it kind of worked out to our favor because we were a little bit delayed as far as actually packing it. And then we realized like, oh, this is going FedEx. So we can't take it to the normal, like drop it off on our way in at the UPS store. We got to actually take it to this other place, this Postalinex that we use. So it ended up working out because it gave us an extra day to do that. We had more than an extra day, but we had that extra day available to us because we had like 5 business days as our shipping.
But you got to check on stuff. Just real quick. I had a bunch of VHS that I was trying to sell on eBay and I was competing with Amazon listings. So I put free shipping. Well, I forgot about that. And so I went to 50% off on my store. Yep. And so I had, for example, like a 6-pack of VHS selling for $12, free shipping. And then
a 50%.
So no. It was 25.
Okay.
And it went down to whatever, $12.50 free shipping. How much profit do you think I made?
Yeah, you probably lost something on that.
I made zero. I made, I think, like $1 maybe.
Okay.
I had to ship them padded priority and somehow get it in there with cardboard. But you got to be careful because you just never know. So I went and I fixed all my listings.
Yeah, check that. And that's not a bad thing too. I mean, we talk about running sales, and you obviously have got to be cautious with that. If you priced it considering shipping, if you're not doing calculated shipping, which I think it's fine to do free shipping. I do a lot of free shipping on things. You almost have to do, again, the store strategy of, hey, look at this item is 25% off, but then you look like they actually raised the price before they put the sale price on it. Like that happened to me at Dick's one time. We bought an item for sale and it was still on sale for a pretty good price. But then after we peeled off the sale sticker, we saw another sticker, and then we peeled off that and we saw another sticker, and they had actually raised the price from its original price to do the sale on it. So that way
that's what happens with store liquidations a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I would say I experienced that with Office Depot. I remember when they shut down. I experienced it with Toys R Us a little bit.
So again, it's not a bad idea to do if you're going to use sales, not just like, hey, I need quick inventory. I don't really care if I'm not making as much profit on stuff. But if you're buying something and like, hey, ideally I want to sell this for $50. That's my happy spot. And I know that's a competitive price for this. I would normally list this for 75, maybe take an offer, but hey, I'm going to run a sale on this. Make it so that your sale brings it down to that $50 because you've already done all the math on that, but you still have the sale running, which again creates that, oh, this item's on sale, I should buy this. But you got to figure that in ahead of time. If you just run your whole store on sale, which again isn't a problem if you're like, hey, I need $1,000 quick because this bill is due or whatever, I had a medical bill come up, then hey, maybe you don't mind if you're, selling stuff for quite a bit less, but then be careful on those things where, especially smaller items where you could end up breaking even or losing money on some stuff.
And I encourage everyone, keep costs low. If you can keep your costs low, that's okay. Right? If you're spending, $2 to $3 an item that you're flipping for $100 and you go 50% off, you're still going to do well, right? You're still going to 10 to 20 exit or whatever it is. But if you're doing retail arbitrage, that's when it gets kind of tricky, So, all right. Do you want to update on the porch dog?
Okay, yeah. So let's
give some context.
Let me give the context because I feel like you're gonna pad the story a little bit so it doesn't sound as crazy. So at least on your end. So Orlando gets a message from somebody about a plush, and somebody wanted some pictures of it, and so he's like, "Well, I can't send you any more pictures of this plush because I deleted them off my phone, but they're in the listing." And then the person said that they wanted to see the item in, and then they put porches, and I'm 99% sure that it was an autocorrect in pictures. And so Orlando takes the item, puts it on some grass, takes a picture of it, and says, "Well, I don't have a porch, but here's the plush on my lawn." And so I think it was supposed to be pictures, but then Orlando sends me the message that this guy sent afterwards, and it does get weird. So
okay, all right. So I want to preface this where I'm not knocking anybody. I mean, even myself, I have a special needs child, so I don't know this individual, okay, where this lands, okay, but things got kind of interesting, okay, so I send the pictures and I get this, you did an incredible job with the pictures, and I don't know how to respond to that. Like, I go, appreciate it, and then they said, they gave me they're like, is this how much it's going to be? I'm like, yeah, I think so. I mean, that's Canadian dollars, but if you interpret it in American, it's going to be this. Then got a question the question I received after is he half soft or hard nose?
And that's fair enough for a plush.
I guess so. So I said, all right, I'll get back. This is already becoming too much. Okay, it's only, I'm not going to make a lot of money on this. And so I get back to them, I'm like, oh, it's a hard nose, whatever. And then they said, it means if I will sleep with him, nose will bother me. And I'm like, okay, so maybe this is a child, like they want a plush to like sleep with, you know what I mean? The like comfort animal or whatever. And then I just said, all depends on the person, should be good. And then I get this picture of this grown man holding a plush. And I'm like, all right, I don't even know. Like, I don't. And then they said, I'm a 24-year-old man. And I'll buy your plush to sleep with him at night. And I'm kind of like, all right, like, do I respond? Like, cool, bro. Like, what do I like? Do I relate with him? Like, hey, I love sleeping with plushes sometimes. Like, I don't
you let it go. Let it go.
So all I said is appreciate your business. I don't know if that's the most cool to calculate, but so I don't know if I got trolled. Like, one of you trolled me on this one. Like, I'm not sure. Was it somebody that doesn't like Pure as a podcast? Was it somebody that, they generally have a thing for sleeping with big plushes next to them at night?
Now, I think that's the best take on it. And you should always have the best take. Assume the best for people. I was telling Orlando though, like it reminded me potentially, and I think you got to be careful. We talked about this with.
Are you going to go down this road?
I'm not going to go down it too far. I think people, they understand. But it's a really useful tool. We talked about on a previous episode about using the sell similar. I think sell similar is very useful because a lot of the details are in there. I do think though that there is probably different communities into different things that use keywords on listings on local deals specifically, and then probably also on things like eBay, where if it has certain keywords or phrases in a certain order, that what you're getting isn't actually the item that's for sale. Right. Where it's like,
this is like TikTok conspiracy kind of stuff.
I mean, I don't think it is, because I mentioned on a podcast previously, and I don't remember.
I remember.
I told this story about, something I found on a local deal, and I actually reported it to, I think it was OfferUp, and I reported it as I think that there's some very devious activity happening here. But it was pretty clear that what was being sold was like not actually the thing, but it was like probably pictures of things that they shouldn't be selling. And so, I think you've got to be careful maybe with sell similar, because what could have happened is did you do sell similar on that plush? Do you know?
I did.
Okay. So it's possible that there's a community of people who know to look for a certain thing. And if they just know they eBay search certain things. And if it pops up, that's their way of getting, maybe it could be anything. It could be drugs. It could be whatever. Who knows what it is, right? So just be careful if you do sell similar that descriptions actually make sense for what you're doing, because if there's something weird in there, it could be, I don't even know what the terminology is.
So you're telling me I entered an area that I was unaware of, possibly?
Maybe. Or it could just be, the customer just
like sleeping with plushes,
has an interesting situation. But the fact that you got a picture sent to you, I almost feel like you were trying to, like someone was filling you out, like almost like code words, right? Like if you come to me and you say like, hey, what's the weather like? And if I say, well, it's sunny with a chance of meatballs, then that I'm selling the stuff in the back or whatever.
No,
right?
I get it. It was one of the weirdest interactions. I've had it before though. I've had interactions of like, I've had somebody like send me pictures and like go like, hey, how do you think I look? And I'm like, what? Like, this is not a dating site. Like, what are we doing here? So anyways,
weird. That is random for sure.
That's up there. So
the porches picture story definitely got more interesting.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's all I got. I mean, the other random story is I've just had a lot of angry people lately. It's funny that eBay allows us to do partial refunds if you're a top rated seller.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if eBay needs to do something else to kind of clarify to buyers that if we're a top rated seller, we have the ability to give a 50% off or a 50% less refund. The item isn't returned as described, because I had one person threaten negative feedback, and this is what I was going to say. They said, I've never done this before, but I'm going to send you a negative feedback with pictures. And remember we had talked about the pictures of negative feedback. And I wasn't worried about it because I know everything I did was legit, but they were angry. They kept like messaging me all in caps and stuff. And I had another buyer do the same about they weren't happy that an item was creased, even though I said it was creased and it showed pictures. And I just, I gave the 50% because these were new items I had sold. They had opened them. I can't sell them at full price anymore. And, but here's the thing. Let's redeem this a little bit. The great thing is if you're a top rated seller and you offer free returns, eBay, I would go with 99.9999% of the time will side with you. That's been my experience. And even the other day when I was talking to an eBay rep with this upset buyer, I had another buyer leave me a negative feedback. They were angry about something, and I had called eBay and the rep wasn't very knowledgeable. And they said, well, we could remove the comment, but your negative feedback's going to have to stay there. Have I shared this story?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Okay. And the comment was like an off kilter. It was like calling me all these things. And I was just like, I said, you can remove the comment, but you're going to leave the negative feedback. I told him, I said, I'd rather have you leave the crazy comment on there if you're gonna leave negative feedback, because then at least people have context and are like, all right, this person was an anomaly because everybody else has good things to say and this person has some crazy things. And so, eventually, I was able, through conversation, they removed the negative feedback. But I said, I'm going to call eBay the next day. I'm going to follow up because I don't think I was treated right here. So I called eBay the next day. I wasn't even going to share the story. I called eBay the next day and I'm like, hey, listen, I talked to one of your reps and I had done everything right. I reached out to the buyer. The item was returned to me in a way that was not satisfactory. I gave the 50%. They weren't happy about it. And the rep decided that they could not remove the negative feedback, but they could remove the comment. And it took me about 30 minutes to finally get the rep to see my side of things and to agree that, yeah, I probably should remove the negative feedback. And the person, I said, hey, I don't know if you're the right person to talk to. Okay, let me rewind. They called me talking about another item, which I never sold. And then I said, I said, no, that's not the item. I wanted a follow-up call because of this bad interaction I had with one of your reps earlier last night. And I said, is this eBay leadership? And she said, yes, I am eBay leadership. And I said, well, I wanted to share the story with you. And then what she told me at the end, she's like, I'm sorry, that should have never happened. Since you offer free returns, they should be able to remove the negative feedback if you did everything right with the buyer. So I was like, all right, I'm going to communicate this with the Pure Hustle community. Again, I know a lot of people are scared. I understand if you're selling huge items and it would definitely kill your profit if you did free returns. That may not work for you. But if you're selling clothing or you're selling shoes or things that are easy to ship back, I strongly encourage you to do free returns. I think it is the best protection you can have from a negative feedback.
Oh, it's true.
So anyways, just wanted to share that with you guys. Hey, by the way, you've heard us discuss today about the Discord, and we have a lot of great conversation on Discord, whether it be from just having a good old time with memes in our meme channel or getting serious about business in our discussion about BOLOs or about leveling up or about shipping. One of the ways that I've definitely learned a lot on there is we have a lot of experienced sellers that talk about, like this last one, we had a great discussion about what was the biggest fail. Right. And a lot of people shared their fails. And one of the individuals, Dennis, who's in our Discord, had talked about how earlier on he had listened to YouTube and had picked up all these things that people were saying on YouTube. And he feels that kind of slowed his growth, that he should have gone to items that he already knew were profitable and were good. And once he started doing that, he started scaling. And I was like, wow, this is a great conversation that I don't see a lot of people on YouTube or on podcasts, and maybe we talk about it, hopefully don't talk about. And made me really grateful for the Discord. So I want to encourage you, if you want to support Pure Hustle Podcast, just for $5.55 a month, you can join our Patreon. You go to patreon.com/Pure Hustle Podcast or go to the link below. And what that does is it opens up the Discord. Also, it's just a way of us saying thank you for supporting the podcast. And then we'll send you a link to the Discord and you can join us there and have a great conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't have to be super active in the Discord if you don't want to be. We have a lot of people who just kind of lurk there and they're getting some information, and occasionally they'll ask questions, but more and more it's becoming a great community where people are able to ask questions. And we used to do, when we had Buy Me a Coffee before we had our Patreon, we would do like monthly Buy Me a Coffee like meetings where it was kind of just like a Zoom call where we got to kind of chat with some of our listeners who supported us. And we're kind of thinking potentially in the future, we don't have anything rock solid on this yet, but of doing some kind of YouTube or like a hangout type thing with just our supporters, where it's just an informal, you can maybe even do it through Discord, but where it's less formal than a podcast, not scripted. We're not going through like specific, here's our agenda of what we're going to talk about, but a chance to actually talk. Cause it's really cool to have the forum where we can talk to people, but there's nothing like actually face to face or just verbally speaking with people. And hey, what are your experiences? We loved our coffee. What do we call it? Our coffee hangouts. Remember. Yeah. And we did our Buy Me Coffee. So it was basically just a Zoom call hangout for, 30 minutes every month or two. And that was really cool. So we're planning on bringing something like that back in the future too, because again, all of the people who are supporting us on Patreon, you're the ones allowing us to have all this content free, to have weekly episodes, to have our Monday minis, everything we're putting out on social media, all this stuff we put out for free because we have some good supporters. We have some really good sponsors who help us out. So again, thank you to all of you who support us through that. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And as always, we're on social media. We're Picasso Podcast on all social media except for Twitter. We are Picasso Cast on Twitter with our blue check mark. I always like Mike's reaction when I say that. If you haven't yet, you can always give us a call, leave us like a BOLO or a hustle of the week or even a question, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Or shoot us an email, puresoapodcast@gmail.com. That's puresoapodcast@gmail.com. And if you're listening to the podcast and you've never seen our faces, I encourage you, not because we're, well, I don't know, maybe we are studly handsome guys, but come on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, hit that bell notification. Again, I always say this, if everyone who listened to our podcast jumped over to YouTube, our YouTube numbers would skyrocket immediately. So we encourage you to do that. That would be great. And as always, thank you to all of you that leave iTunes reviews. I believe we're in the 700 range, and we are the most reviewed reselling podcast and the #1 reselling podcast out there because of all of you. So if you haven't yet, jump on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review and even a message as to why you enjoy the podcast.
That's right. I feel like we need to have one of those like stingers at the beginning of the show. It's like overproduced. It's like, welcome to Picasso Podcast, the #1 reselling podcast in the world. But like kind of do it like tongue in cheek,
with all like the tags, like some music video. Anyways,
sweet.
All right. Hey, it's time to talk about some important things here that are happening in the reselling world.
Things are changing consistently, and we have to change with it. There's topics we're going to talk about, and I'm not sure exactly what they all are because I'm having a hard time reading the notes. Orlando, take it away. Orlando's a little cryptic sometimes with our show notes.
Am I?
A little bit. It's okay, though.
Why? I just said target thrifty buyers.
Yeah, I don't.
That confuse you?
Yeah, it's okay. What do we got here?
I see what you're saying. It could be like target thrifty buyers, but I'm going to be talking about Target is looking for thrifty buyers.
Okay.
Or trying to, okay, let me explain. All right. So, as you know, Q1 results have come in. We discussed an update episode ago about eBay's Q1 results, and Target recently had their Q1 results, and this is from Reuters. And the headline is Target, the store, the retail store, not the word, the retail store, sets cautious tone as U.S. consumers turn thrifty. So in their retail, they did discuss how, things are still remaining resilient despite higher prices, but consumers have been careful about their spending, hurting companies such as Target and Home Depot, whose merchandise largely consists of discretionary products, right? And I would say, we don't sell a lot of what people need. A lot of the times we do sell a lot of wants, right? Depends on your model. And so here's the chief growth officer, Christina Hennington from Target, said, American consumers continue to face difficult trade-off decisions as they juggle the wants and needs of their families. The fear of looming recession weighs heavily on many American buyers. These continued signs of caution among consumers have reinforced why we entered this year with a conservative inventory position. And so remember that when they had that huge overflow, like after the whole scenario that happened in 2020.
Right. Yep.
And now they're ordering less. They're making sure that they're cautious about what they're buying. And so one analyst says that Target's original guidance for the year was on the conservative side. Against that backdrop, we think Target's print is a step in the right direction. And then they go into why Target's losing a ton of money because of shoplifting. And I've heard some analysts talk about that they're just covering for the fact that they're having low sales. So I don't know. But what I'll say is if big retail giants are saying, hey, by the way, we recognize that people are being a lot more cautious in what they buy, right? And when you go to Target, right, usually you're buying stuff that you need, right? You're buying groceries, you're buying, household supplies, whatever it is. You have to be, even more cautious in the eBay reselling space. And there was another report I read how eBay is making sure that they are possibly lowering their prices because they don't want to lose buyers at this point in time. And so if these big retail giants that sell everyday things that people want are doing this, I think that should be a warning to us as resellers that in the reselling space, we need to be careful about our own prices. And as a person that's always listed items really high and just put best offer, I even myself have changed. This is why I've been running the 50% off sales, because I'm recognizing that I can't sell items the way I used to 2 years ago. I definitely have to look at my prices, and I have to lower my price to meet the expectations of the economy. And maybe, you know, when things rebound again, we can get back to that place where it's, let's say, with best offer. But I encourage you guys to definitely look at your prices, because if this is the trend, you know, at these other stores where people buy stuff all the time, it should be even more so with what we're selling.
Yeah. I mean, we gotta be wise. I feel like we try on PRSL podcast. If you're a longtime listener of PRSL podcast, you know that we talk about things like macroeconomics and the, you know, political things. We don't try and go into like, here's our political beliefs on this or that, but we recognize that as things change, I mean, we were calling, you know, the possible inflation and all of those things years before it happened, knowing that, hey, the economy is cyclical. There's going to be dips, and then there's going to be expansion, and then that's just normal. And so, okay, how do we prepare for that? How do we expect, okay, it looks like we're going to be moving into one of those periods. And so sometimes people are like, we just want to hear about reselling. What should I be buying and selling? Well, it's bigger than that. Reselling is more than just, hey, buy these pair of shoes at this price. You're going to be able to sell it for this. Go to Ross and pick this up. And so understanding that even things like, hey, when Amazon comes out and they're offering free shipping and their return policy is really good. Okay, well, that changes the expectation of buyers. Okay, well, how does that affect us as resellers? Okay, well, how do we have to change our shipping times? We have to change our shipping methods. All of those things start to take a play. And if you're selling the same way you were selling 10, 20, 30 years ago, and maybe it works for you if you're like, hey, I buy really rare vintage items and, you know, I clean them up and I've got a corner on my market. Maybe you don't have to do a lot of changing, but the economy change affects everybody. And so recognizing that, hey, what's happening in the banking system, what's happening in, you know, big box stores like Target, or what's happening in the e-commerce world, specifically with things like eBay and Amazon, even when we talk about Temu and all those things do matter in a way. And we have to consider, okay, how does this impact us? And if those stores are adjusting their prices lower, and we talked about the fact that like electronic prices, like TV prices drop significantly. Okay, well, if that's the expectation and certain prices are going to go down, people are buying things at thrift stores. Okay, well, thrift stores recognize that. So then they start to raise their prices. Even things that have to do with maybe not so much just the economy, but just pop culture in general, where people are, it's becoming trendy to repurpose things, or trendy to buy and trying to be sustainable. Well, Goodwill and Salvation Army and those places are going to capitalize on that, and they're going to recognize that their market is changing. And so again, that impacts us as resellers. And so we want to make sure that we're staying up to date on current events, and not that everybody has to be an expert. Like, you don't need to be an expert on economics. You don't need to go and take an economics class and read all the books. But you do need to kind of consider, okay, how could this impact me? And if things are changing with big companies when the Q1 reports come out, okay, how are they changing their model? Even like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, as far as marketing strategies, these companies are spending so much money in marketing strategies. And so we recognize, hey, if there's big changes in the way they're doing things, the model, how they're selling things, the way they even display things or advertise things, or the types of coupons they're running, maybe it's a good idea to at least consider, how could this impact me as a reseller? Because it does impact us as resellers. Maybe it's only a few percent here and there, but those things add up. And it's the resellers who are willing to at least consider. And we've even talked about that as far as like when something big happens, there's a new TV show, there's a new version of Ghostbusters, there's a new somebody is in the news because they committed a crime or somebody passed away. Or it's the people who think like, okay, like, can I resell those things? Can I sell things connected to that? Should I maybe unlist my things because I don't want to be associated with certain things? So the more aware you are, the better you're going to do in the long run. And so paying attention to what Target is doing, it's important.
Yeah, agreed. Now, on a lighter note, on a positive note, I was not aware. Somebody brought this up. We had mentioned this in our themed episode about, hey, if you're a top rated seller, you end up getting that $100 insurance with USPS. But someone on Discord brought up the fact that this actually applies to everybody now. Right. And so I was like, all right, that's a good thing. Now, it's a good thing, but have you recently tried to get your money back on an insurance claim on USPS?
No. Usually it's not even worth it for me unless it's a really big thing, and I haven't had an issue with the post office losing a big thing recently. Thank goodness.
No, but it's been terrible lately, and I've been rejected like twice, and it just feels like the USPS, unless you somehow show up to their doorstep and like show something to them that it's broken, like they, whatever reason, they reject it. I've sent pictures, I've sent everything. So I want to encourage everyone, well, let me know in the comments. I've shipped everything and I've turned it over to ship cover insurance. I used to do the USPS because it used to be pretty quick. But if you're shipping with USPS on eBay, you do have the option of ship cover. And I was looking at their stuff here and it was interesting. They said ship cover is fully integrated with eBay labels. Buying insurance is only a few clicks away. Claims are processed in days, not weeks. And most coverage costs less than USPS. So I thought that's pretty cool because with the post office, right, you'll put in a claim and it takes weeks. And then even when it takes weeks, then they're like, oh, we're looking at your item. Then it takes another week or two. And then maybe you'll get a check in the mail or you'll get a letter in the mail that says, well, we need more evidence. Can you send this? And so I was looking at this. I'm like, I'm going to start using ship cover. Now, luckily, I haven't had to do anything recently with, USPS insurance. Here's another thing they said you can file a claim on my eBay with most claims processed within a week. You can always monitor your claims progress 24/7 online. No more waiting on the post office or standing in line. So anyways, just want to give everyone the alternative. If you've had an experience with ship cover when you ship stuff on eBay, let us know in the comments. Like, is it easier? Is it simple? I think Scavenger Life at one point had said, and Scavenger Life is the OG reselling podcast, had said, hey, we can use ship cover now because it's a lot easier to go through that process. So now I thought this was pretty cool. Wanted to throw in these couple stories. So you ever had those moments where you wake up in the morning when you're going to a garage sale and you're like, maybe this will be the day? Do you ever have those?
Oh yeah. I mean, every time you go out, you hope this is the day.
Yeah. But you never expect that day to be like a $1,000. I've had $1,000 days, but like a $10,000 day.
Yeah. I'm waiting one of these days.
Okay. So these two stories just recently happened and those days happened. Now they didn't go to a garage sale, but let me share the headlines here. So 2 jars were bought for $25 at a thrift store. They turned out to be Qing Dynasty. So that's Qing. It's pronounced Qing Dynasty. Treasures that could fetch $63,000 at auction. Okay, so these were a pair of Qing Dynasty jars that were snapped up at a London charity shop for 20 pounds, which is $25. And they could fetch up to $63,000 at an auction. And so the auction happens. Oh, actually, you know what? I don't know why there isn't a current follow-up on this. The auction recently happened, but we'll have to wait and see. And I was like, wow. Like I look at these jars and I'll probably post these on social. And I'm like, I probably would have never looked at this because this isn't my niche. This isn't the kind of stuff I pick up. But again, you just never know. This always motivates me to continue going out there and looking for items. So the other story here, this is from New York. So let me read the story here. New Yorker Nancy Cavalier started trending online after she shared her thrift shop find of a lifetime on social media. Cavalier unknowingly purchased 4 authentic Pablo Picasso ceramic edition plates from a Salvation Army in New York City for $8. Little did she know that these plates would be the gift that kept on giving, as 3 of them went to auction and reaped a collective $41,000. Right, and these plates, like when I look at them, they have like a Picasso style. These were black plates, and they kind of look like a face, but there's no way I would have looked these up. Right? No way. So I want to encourage you guys with these stories. Like, you just never know. You never know whether it's a garage sale, whether you're going to thrift stores, you never know what you're going to come across.
Yeah, you might come across like a rare Roman bust.
No, somebody found that, right? That was the other story we had shared recently. And actually that bust is, I think the tour is finished. It was going through all these museums.
It's crazy.
That's right. But how you said earlier, like, even though I didn't score at the garage sales, I enjoyed the thrill of it.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what separates us from a lot of podcasting YouTube out there, is that it's all business. I understand. I'm cool with the business. I am a full-time seller. I need to have that business mindset. But I will say, I will be done with reselling once the thrill of it is gone.
Yeah, I mean,
because I could make money other ways.
There's other ways to make money for sure. I mean, I don't know. Like reselling is really nice in the sense of, like I talked about on a previous episode, like it is a skill you can learn that you can always pull from. Like you can like ease back on your reselling and then realize like, hey, I need to make a little extra money. I'm gonna go a little bit harder. So it's always just a good thing to have in the tank that you can pull from. It's a good skill to have. But yeah, I mean, the fact that it's so enjoyable to hunt. I mean, it's really,
and then when
really
you find stuff and you're like, okay, I'm so glad I went out.
And we've talked in the past. So you like to do when you record, like if you're not following us on our Instagram, like Orlando's really good about, I don't always agree with how low he goes on some of his offers. We talked about the negotiating, but he records the garage sale negotiations that he does and things that he finds. But he's pretty like sneaky with his phone. Like he's not, he's just showing the items he's getting and he'll do the negotiation. He's not showing the people's faces. Whereas like when I go out, a lot of times I'll actually have my like GoPro on, or it's not a GoPro, but something similar, an action camera. And he's made comments like, I don't want that to ruin my negotiations. And I have had people say like, what's up with the camera? And honestly, when you tell people and you're like, you know what, you never know what you're going to find. And you start telling them stories like, I just recently read a story of someone finding some Picasso, like whatever, or somebody finding this, and you tell them the story and you're like, one day, and it becomes that connection. Like I've had so many people like laughing with me and telling me like, that'd be cool. Like maybe this is my thing. And so it ends up being like a cool thing. I've had a couple of times people are like, be careful with the guy with the camera. But a lot of times the people are like, man, I hope you find it. And it becomes that like almost a connection point with me and the person I'm negotiating with of, yeah, I have the camera on because one of these days I'm going to find the $1 million item. Do you have it? Is it this? Right. And like we laugh and we joke. And so, but yeah, I mean, one of these days it happens. It happens to people.
But let's be real. If we found the $1 million item, I wouldn't post it anywhere.
Oh, heck. Yeah, I'd be posting it. I'd be talking. People would be like, okay, Pure Soul Podcast has turned into the Mike found $1 million item podcast.
Yeah, but isn't it like those people that win the lottery and then they go out there and next thing you know, they're being sued by everyone and everybody's wanting money from them. And
yeah, I guess you got to be careful if it's something where you're like, I don't want anybody to know like that I picked up this item, especially until it sells. Like who was it? It was. I don't know, it was one of the resellers that bought something on YouTube, and like they were very cryptic about it for a long time, and then they finally released what it was because it went to like a major auction house and it was like in a museum and like a whole thing. And it's like, yeah, I mean, so there are times where it's like, okay, we've got to be kind of careful with certain things. But man, if I found like a vintage Picasso or something, it would be, I'd be talking about it a lot.
No, that would be cool. I don't know.
That's though when people like you do get the hate of like you bought this from them and it was a Picasso and you should split the money with them, and it's like, I don't know. Okay, there's some gray areas. So yeah, maybe you don't mention it.
See, I'm more of like, so one of the stories said like the one with the Qing dynasty jars that they're gonna give the money back to the thrift shop. See, you could go down that road. Like I know myself, if that opportunity arose, I would probably give it, to my church or to a family that needs it. Like, I obviously wouldn't hoard all that money for myself, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one because again, it's funny, and I know I'm kind of sputtering here, but I've had it before where I bought something from somebody and I sold it for a ton of money. And the person's like, I'm so glad you sold that item for that much money. Like, I just wanted it to go to somebody that knew what they're doing and to sell it. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of the cool thing too. Like, I mean, you can always, you're going to be miserable if you are completely envious all the time and you look at people and if you can't celebrate their wins. I'll give you an example, just quick connection to what we started the podcast with. So when I went to the school event, they were giving out a drone as like a drone goes all the way back to the beginning of the podcast. I started reselling
way back.
I started reselling because I wanted to make a little bit of money to be able to buy a drone. And anyways, at this expo that we were going to, it was like everybody who goes gets a raffle ticket, and we're going to pull a winner at the end, and whoever wins is going to win this drone, worth, several $100s, like a very nice DJI drone, like a nice drone. And I was joking the whole time, like with everybody, man, I really hope I win this drone. And I really did hope I'd win it, but there's a ton of people there. Well, it comes down to the ending drawing and they're like doing all the numbers, right? And it gets down to the last digit and I'm still in it, right? So like I'm within 9 of like getting this drone. It was the person after me. And not only was it the person after me, but the person after me gave her ticket to another guy who's like a friend of mine there at the school. And I could have been like, hey, give me your tickets if you're going to leave, because she was leaving and she gave him the ticket. And I'm like, part of me was like, it could have been me. It was literally the person after me who picked a ticket. But then you're like, I'm if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. I didn't win it. I was happy for that guy, right? Like you can easily get to the point in your life where you see another reseller winning in something, or somebody else. I agree. And if your entire mindset is, why isn't it me? As opposed to like, when you hear a story like this and you go like, man, that is so awesome. Maybe one day it's me, but if it's not, like, you got to celebrate other people's victories or you're going to be miserable.
I agree.
Yeah, it would be
this
great.
Is like a motivational, but
I think it's important. I think it's important to consider that as.
No, I agree with you. All the time, people that we've helped in the Discord. I mean, we have people that have killed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like even found a bolo, like we've mentioned, like of not something I've sold, but like, here's a grail. I found this thing. Like I heard about it and like, I'm looking out for it now. And then somebody finds it like, I only found this because you mentioned on the podcast, and thinking like, oh, it could have been me. I could have been the one that got the $5,000 deal. But then that's not how I want to feel. I want to be like, man, that is so awesome. I'm excited that the fact that I shared that helped somebody else out. And, I think that's what's so cool about like our Discord is like, it's a community that's like supporting each other. And one day, we've had people find some pretty cool things, maybe not quite,
we have somebody that found a storage unit of like historical items. And
that was crazy.
But it's still selling, right? Yep. And every time we're all celebrating because it's so cool, the stuff they came across. So anyways, encourage you guys, celebrate the wins for everyone.
That's right.
All right. Hey, so that is our reseller topics. Before we move forward to our BOLOs, if you're in need of bubble wrap and you have an order from American Bubble Boy, you are missing out on a great product with fast shipping. American Bubble Boy ships next day, 2-day, nationwide. It's free shipping, and there's even local pickup. So if you haven't checked them out, go to our link below, American Bubble Boy, and order some bubble wrap. Yeah. All right, let's talk about some Bolo. What's your Bolo?
Yeah.
So what's your Bolo?
I'm gonna kick it, since we're going old school. I'm gonna keep it going old school. I'm gonna go back to OG. And if you haven't listened to our original episodes, I suggest it with caution, right? Like some of our old stuff was, a little rough. But we had a lot of cool stories back then. And one of my favorite finds, I'll always remember this find, was a duck decoy that I bought. And what I loved so much about it is I didn't know anything about it. And I just remembered having a conversation with some guys at lunch one day. And one of the older gentlemen at lunch was saying that hobby he was into was duck decoys. I didn't even know what that was. Right. Yeah. I thought like my father-in-law does a lot of like duck hunting. So I thought like maybe he meant like, like something that you put out in order, but no, like these are like decorative duck decoys that people collect and they, display them. Well, I bought one and it wasn't even a huge sale. I mean, maybe one of our listeners who's recently listened to our podcast will tell me how much I made. Like it was under 100. Like it wasn't like a crazy sale, but it was like, man, I bought this for like $1 and I sold it for whatever it was, $50-$60, something like that. And it was like, man, what a cool sale, like a random thing. And you were like, I would have never picked up something like that.
Yeah, true.
And if you look through, if you just go onto eBay and you just type in duck decoys, and then you like filter by sold and like some of the higher price stuff, I tend to try and do like the middle of the road. Like you can put in the $10,000 sale stuff. And like, those are the rare, you're probably never going to find. But if you put stuff in the middle of the road, stuff from, $50 to a couple $100, you'll tend to find some brands or artists. Cause what it really comes down to is a duck decoy. Not only is there a huge community of people who collect them, and want to display them, but it's like art. There are artists, there are people who carve these, they're well known for carving these. Mm-hmm. And
they'll sign them sometimes.
They sign them, on the bottom, and they tend to have a stamp on them. So anyways, if you see a duck decoy, look it up. If you see them at an estate sale or garage sale, a lot of times you can pick them up for decent prices, and you might have to do a little bit of research, because unless you're a duck decoy person that knows all of the creators and the artists that make these, you might not know what you have. But if you spend a little bit of time, sometimes you got to like look up like, okay, what is this symbol? You're putting in initials. But if you find a few, you can do well. And I know you've recently sold some duck decoys, right?
Yeah. So about a year ago, I bought a table full of duck decoys for like $10. And it was crazy because the only reason I picked them up is because ever since you brought up duck decoys, and I think there was somebody back, I can't remember who it was, who sold one for several $1,000s. Right. And duck decoys, I would say it's a bolo, but it's a long tail bolo. Like it's not like you're going to sell it overnight. Now, I did have the luck or the consistency, because I consistently, source stuff, that when I picked up these duck decoys, one of them sold for over $100, like within a week. It's already is in the profit. So I recently sold one. And it was one of those, I got a message, and the message was, hey, what are the dimensions of this? Could you let me know? And it was weird because it wasn't from the item. It was just a random name. And I don't know how that happened. But they kept asking me all these questions, and I entertained the questions and I measured them. And literally it was a 5-inch duck decoy. It wasn't even very big. And remember, I paid $10. I already made $100. And this one was a vintage bufflehead, a Drake duck decoy. And it is signed on the bottom, and it had like a date when it was made and so on. It was pretty cool. And remember, I paid $10 for all these. So maybe I paid $2 to $3. And it sold for $150 plus ship.
Nice.
And I was like, thank goodness, Mike back in the day decided to find some duck decoys. Yeah. And make them a bolo.
Just out of ignorance, right? Like I saw something. I was like, well, knickknacks. Maybe these things are worth something. Somebody talked about them one time, so I know people like these things, and it worked out. We actually even talked like a long time ago about like we need to make a shirt about duck decoys, because I think that was my first bolo.
Yeah,
it was duck
that
decoys.
Is true.
And so we were actually talking about like shirts and stuff. And we talked, it's been a little while now. We talked about, okay, Picasso Podcast is going to do merch. We've been kind of having like that once we reach 10,000 on YouTube, but I think we're tired of waiting until we reach the 10,000 mark on YouTube. So our goal is over the next period of time. We don't know the exact date, but we'd like to start doing merch. Like we want to do shirts. We have so many shirt ideas, some fun shirt ideas. So if you want, like, 'cause it's going to take some work. Like we don't know what people, like, do our listeners even want to buy shirts and buy mugs and stuff that have fun reselling phrases and sayings, things that connect to the podcast, things about reselling. So let us know in the comments below. Motivational stuff. If you want that, if you're like, yeah, Picasso Podcast merch would be cool, let us know in the comments below, because I think that'd be cool. I think we should do it. I think we should say like, why wait to the 10,000? I think there's benefits, like YouTube allows like certain things once you reach 10,000, and you get like, you can go through Teespring and get discounts and whatever. But we're like, you know what? We've got a lot of people who love Picasso Podcast. You guys have been supporting us, and we've got shirt ideas, and we've got ideas. So let us know if you'd be interested in shirts. That'd be fun. Maybe one of the first ones. Maybe we do like a very limited edition duck decoy shirts. I don't know how many people. It would only be like all 10 of you who are like, yes, the duck decoy shirt is finally here. But
it's been a long time since we talked about it, but I think it's finally time to make it happen. So, all right, hey, my bolo, and I don't know if have I mentioned vintage video game plush before?
I don't know about plush.
Okay,
I mean, we talk about vintage video games, but
one of the grails for me, and I think somebody has a hustle of the week, like an episode, I don't know, 43 or something back in the day. So for example, there's like Kirby. If you can find a vintage Nintendo Kirby plush, and I think it has to be a certain brand and so on, like it goes for like $400 to $500. But I've even one time in my early days of reselling came across a table, and it was all these new tags Nintendo plush, and it was like a Link from Legend of Zelda, and it was Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, Bowser, a Goomba. Peaches. You know what's funny? That was like popular like over a decade ago, and like it came back. So
what, Mario?
No, Jack Black.
Jack Black's great.
I know, good old Tenacious D days. Anyways, so getting back to vintage video game plush. Jack Black just threw me off there. Vintage video game plush. If you see it, okay, if it's like a Sonic, I mean, I know some of it's mass produced, but look it up, because there are some things that can go for crazy money. I mean, I think the one I've sold the most for was a Link, and I didn't sell it for crazy money. It was like $80, but I only paid like 25 cents at the thrift for it. So definitely keep an eye out.
And it makes sense that like, okay, obviously Mario right now. I mean, Mario's always big, but like the movie case, so certain things like that. But it's crazy because kids know Sonic, kids know Mario, I'm a middle school teacher. And occasionally, like when kids come in early and like school hasn't started yet, I'll play videos in the background. Sometimes the fun videos to play are just like Minecraft walkthroughs or stuff like that. And so one of my favorite games is Ori and the Blind Forest. So I had that playing in the background.
Really?
And kids are like, what is that?
You're the cool teacher. You know that?
Yeah. And kids are like, crazy. Some kids are like, I don't know. I think, I heard one kid say this and it cracked me up. Like, I don't know. I feel like old people like emotional games. They like games that are like really sad. And I was like, what does that even mean? But then I was like, yeah, Ori and the Blind Forest. I mean, it's not an old game, but it's kind of emotional.
Your junior high middle school voice is like Beavis.
Yeah, it should be more like yeah,
But
old people like middle.
It'd be cool if
Yeah,
it was a video.
But anyways, it's crazy how, and we've talked about it again. I mean, I feel like this episode we're just dropping so much stuff that's like real.
We're all over the place right now.
But I think it's so true that like people, the reason why vintage always does good, and there's like a window of vintage. The reason it's such a great thing to purchase is because when you're young and you're interested in something and you love something, but you don't have the money for it, and then you get old. Yep. So by true. Old, I mean like you're 30.
Oh my!
Because that's old. Here? That's old to the high schoolers.
That is true.
But when you're in your
people
30s,
call me sir now. Yep. It drives me crazy.
Oh, I think it's great.
Or like, do you need help with the groceries, sir? What? I'm only 43.
But when you're old to a high schooler or a junior higher, that means you're probably like their parent age, and their parents now have money, and they're showing they're buying their Pokemon. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. You're a millennial who's got tons of money who can spend money on Pokemon. That's why the Pokemon thing blew up, right? The kids now, because their parents are buying all this stuff, it gets popular again, and because wherever the money is, that's where the TikTok influence, all those things, whatever's on Instagram, that stuff is going to go towards wherever money is. So the kids are seeing these things, and so they're going to be interested in the vintage Sonic and Mario and all of the things that were really pop. Zelda's. I mean, obviously Zelda's really big right now because the new game just dropped.
Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah,
Tears of the Kingdom just dropped. But vintage Zelda stuff, are you kidding me? Because it's not just that little kids, but it's the 30-year-olds and it's the 40-year-olds who played Zelda on the NES that are now have money and they can buy the OG stuff. Yeah, that's where the money comes from. So that vintage period, like you got to consider like that's the time frame you want. Now, if it's like 60, 70, 80 years old, now you're getting into like a very collector's market. You're getting into very, niche. But if you're looking at like what is going to make you a lot of money, but still easy-ish to find, it's going to be the stuff that the 30 and 40-year-olds who now have money, who are trying to relive their childhood, wishing they had money in their childhood. That's the stuff that's selling.
And by the way, Y2K is coming back right now.
Is it?
Like that's the new one. Yeah, I'm serious. Like clothing and so on.
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't know. Were you a Y2K? Yeah, you were.
Yeah, I mean, that was like is that
Jenko jeans?
That was like middle school. Yeah,
was Jenko jeans around? Not that you were.
See, I didn't have the money, so I don't know what they were wearing. I was wearing Payless. I got made fun of for the Payless stuff.
Yeah, the pro wings. Remember the pro wings?
Yeah, I thought I was really cool when I finally got Converse, but they were the 1 stars, not the all stars. Those are the Target ones. And somebody was like, "Those aren't even real Converse." I'm like, "What are you talking about? They're Converse."
Here's what's funny too is like right now I'm collecting vintage, like 49er stuff and so on. And so I remember, well, we are all over the place, but I want to share the story. So one of my best friends, and I, my mom would always like, if she bought stuff for me, she would buy stuff for my buddy. And she bought us 49er jackets, but they were chalk line. And in the 90s, chalk line was not as cool as starter. Like chalk line was like lower tier, or as the Walmart brand, or as the kids would say mid.
Oh, it's so mid. Yeah.
Right. So I remember we got these chalk line jackets and it was cool. Like my buddy loved it and he was grateful and I was grateful too. But it wasn't the starter 49ers jacket, right? But here's what's crazy now. The chalk line 49ers jackets, like the gold ones, they're worth like $400 to $500 now.
Yeah.
Just as much. I would say maybe even more than the starter jackets. So you're right. You're right. And who knows, maybe the 1 stars will come back.
Wouldn't that be crazy? Like if you've got Converse 1 stars, man, you're making it.
There you go. There you go. All right. Hey man, what are you looking forward to here?
Merch. That'd be cool. It'd be cool if we did some PRS podcast merch. And then also, we actually have in my car right now, after we finish recording, we're going to kind of start playing with it a little bit. So again, thank you to all of the listeners who kind of dealt with the short period of time there when my son was in the NICU and there was some sicknesses in our family. So we were doing some remote recording. And it wasn't like the highest quality. It was mostly just like, we want to get content out there. So the quality, even if the sound quality goes down, which Pure Hustle Podcast from the beginning has kind of been known for, like our video and our audio quality is going to be top notch. We said that from the beginning. Like we want to make sure that our quality of the content we're providing is good, but also the stuff that the people are hearing needs to be, good. So it was rough for a few weeks there, and we thank you for listening, through that. And we promise that when I go to Texas and we're doing remote, like the show is, if anything, going to step up in production quality. I do not, like, Orlando and I have had conversations. We are not going to let production quality drop. We're not going to let the sound quality drop. We're not going to let video quality drop. So all of you guys who've been supporting us have allowed us to purchase some equipment that we're going to start playing with. We bought some stuff that we think is going to make it so when we're recording remote, it's going to sound and look great, and maybe even add some extra flair and some extra fun things to the podcast. So, we're going to start playing with that in the next couple of weeks. Today we'll play with it a little bit. So excited about that. And again, thank you for all of you who not only, suffered through some of those, audio wasn't as amazing as it could be, but it's because of your constant support that we can buy the stuff to make sure that you get the content that you deserve.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm not looking forward to Mike moving, but I'm looking forward to using this new equipment and producing, quality content.
That's right.
So I'm just looking up. I want to ramp up more local deals just because I find that there are more people selling stuff now. In San Diego, it is still a seller's market, where in the sense that there's a lot of resellers here. And so you got to be quick on stuff. But I see a lot of people selling like collections of items. So I'm looking forward to buying more. And the reason I want to buy more too is I do plan on spending a lot more time with my kids this summer. I have, my one son has one more year left of school. And then I have my other younger son, and I have some trips planned. And I want to make sure that while I'm, on the road, I have, constant things to list every day. Well, I have, 30 drafts set up to, if I'm on a trip Monday through Friday, I can list Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and just continue that flow. Because again, I would say right now, you need to be cash heavy because you do not know where this economy is going. We could be fine. Everything could be fine. Or we could be like that cartoon where, everything's in flames and everything's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah. We could be that could be right now, or it could be really, really bad. And,
that is the bad. That is the bad.
I think it could get worse, where the guy can't even have his coffee with the flames in the back.
Sure. Yeah.
He has to evacuate. But I want to make sure that right now I'm bulking up on items so I can list and so I could be ready in case, I need to be cash heavy, and there's a lot of buying opportunities around the corner. So, hey, glad you stuck with us all the way to the end. Appreciate all your support. And as always, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Lates.
Peace.